Welcome to Webinar Wednesday. We are excited to have Phoenix Data Systems sponsor today's presentation, which is eligible for 1 CE credit from the ACI. At the conclusion of this webinar, you will be able to access a link that will take you to a quick survey. You will be able to download your certificate once you submit the survey. Before we begin today's webinar, I'd like to remind everyone that the first of our HTM mixers takes place next month, August 19th and 20th at the Omni Interlochen Hotel in Denver, Colorado. This event is supported by the Colorado Association of Biomedical Equipment Technicians. Join us for 2 days of networking, continuing education, and vendor engagement in a slightly modified, less crowded, and safer environment. Visit htmmixer.com for more information and to register for this event. Webinar Wednesday would like to thank our sponsor, Phoenix Data. Today we will be discussing AIMS 3, a complete redesign capitalizing on more than 35 years of user input and experience, resulting in improved screen workflows to optimize efficient and accurate data entry by technicians. This latest iteration of AIMS is browser agnostic and renders to any screen size with the full application accessible from any device, including smartphones and tablets. Also, new in this version are unlimited user-defined fields, customizable screen layouts, and a full system audit trail. Adding to the current feature/function is a personal home screen with dashboards, dynamic analytics, and user-defined metrics related to performance, consistency, and standards. Our presenter today is Aaron Peters, Product Manager of Phoenix Data Systems. Aaron, when you are ready, you may start your presentation.
All right, thank you for that introduction. So we are here to showcase AIMS 3. As it was mentioned, we have been in business for over 35 years. We make it our business to listen to our customers and take all their suggestions and put them into our software. We don't necessarily pretend to be the experts. We give our users exactly what they want. So we've taken that 35 years of experience, we've thrown it into this software, given it a facelift. We've obviously been around a long time. With that, I'll go ahead and show off what it can do, and we'll go here. So to start with, when we log into AIMS 3, we want to have information at your fingertips. One of the goals of AIMS 3 is it should be easier and faster to use. So when you log into the software, we want you to see a dashboard of information that not only is useful information, but also allows you to interact with it. So as a technician here, when I log in, I see my work log right up top. So right away, I can see all the work orders I have assigned to me. On top of that, I can see my PM completion percentage. So I know right away whether I'm ahead or behind based on how much of the current period is left. So I have a 1-month period here. We're almost 30% of the way through July. So I can tell already that I'm ahead of that curve based on my hours. I also have all of my corrective or non-PM work orders by priority on the right side. And then down here at the bottom, I have my overdue work orders as well. This is anything that's late, that's past the due date. Might be a corrective, an incoming inspection, preventive maintenance. Any type of work order that you have would be listed here if it was past the due date. These are all movable. You can change these things around. So if you want your overdue ones up top here, you can just click and drag and change the order that these things are in. On top of that, they're also interactive. So if I come over here and click on any part of one of these charts, it will filter my work log to whatever I've clicked on. So I'm now looking at my urgent non-PM work orders. So I know within a second of logging in that I have urgent work orders. I can click on it and see my list, and then I can click on the go-to button, and within about 2 or 3 seconds of logging in, I'm on my first urgent work order and able to go take care of it. So those navigation improvements are some of the things we're building in. There's a lot of ways to move around the system that all make logical sense and just help everyone get to the information that they need faster. On top of that, you can actually split this out into its own screen. So if you're running multiple monitors, you can pop out your work log move it to another screen. I'll just move it out of the way a little bit, and I can still get to these work orders from this pop-out. So it's all still interactive with the system. If I want to get this into Excel, there's a one-click export. So it's very easy to take my work log, move around the system with it, and keep coming back and continue to work off of this screen. I can watch my own PM completion percentage, so it's kind of a self-policing chart. I don't need my boss to come nag me to get stuff done. I'm going to get it done before anyone has to talk to me about it. Managers get a slightly different view when they log in. They still have all the same opportunities, but when a manager logs in, instead of only seeing their own information, they're going to see all of their employees' information. So now as a manager, if I have multiple employees, I can see all of the PM completion percentages. It's all still interactive. If I come over here and click on this one stat work order, it's still going to filter that down. I can see that it's assigned to Michael. I can even go and view the details of it. If I want to look at my 8 urgent work orders, same thing. So there's a way to quickly see all the information for my entire team and still be able to get that pretty instant drill down to the various records. If, as a manager, I do want to drill down and look at just one employee, I can do that as well. So if I come out here and just choose Doug Brown, I will just get Doug's information. It updates every single chart on the screen to just be Doug. So this is your overall filter for the entire screen, and it allows a manager to drill down and look at just one employee or to see everyone as a group and how everyone is doing. So managers get a slightly different view when they log in just because they have some extra filters and slightly different charts. So they can manage their entire team just with logging in. On top of that, if you need to quickly get to a record anywhere in the system, we have a go-to field up top here. So from anywhere in the system, I can click in this field, and if I just type in tag or EQU, there's a variety of tags you can type in there, and then type in a tag number and hit enter. It's going to jump me directly to that piece of equipment, or the work order, the contract, the part. Anything in the system is available from that list. You can type in just a few characters and it'll take you to it. Now that we're on this record, if we start looking around, you'll see some things that are very obvious, but very important to know. It's under warranty, it's under contract, it's marked as critical equipment or a system, and it is down. So the equipment down is a fairly new addition, but it tells me that somewhere there's a work order for this piece of equipment that this equipment is no longer functioning. It was marked as down. There's a workflow to that we'll look at in a little bit, but it's a very important piece of information for me to have right now. Most of these are interactive. This is under contract. If I need to see more information about that contract, I can click on it, see some more information, and based on security, I can actually go directly to that contract to see more information. Equipment down also gives you some information. It will show you any work order that's been marked as down. So here's the work order, there's the information about it, and then again, there's the go-to button so I can jump directly to that work order and see why it's down and what we can do to get it back up quickly if it's an important piece of equipment to get back up. So just from logging in, looking at this piece of equipment, I see it's down. I can jump over to this work order, see what's going on with it, and perform whatever maintenance is needed to get it back up and running. Over here in work order, all the same messages, all the same opportunities to click on things. You still see pictures on screen. Might be a picture of the nameplate, could be a picture of the equipment, whatever image you want to be visible. And then, of course, you can have any other document attached as well. So some other common elements of AIMS 3 that help with speed and navigation. We have a common toolbar across the top. No matter where you're at with the system, you're going to see a very similar toolbar. Every once in a while, a component may have an extra gadget or two up there, but for the most part, everything's exactly the same and in exactly the same spot. You don't have to hunt around for how to save, how to load, how to move through the system, find things. The toolbar is essentially exactly the same. So that helps with navigation. Everything has go-to buttons. If I'm on a piece of equipment and I want to see the history of that, any one of these work orders I can get to. I hit the button, I can see the history of the equipment, I can get right to the work order. If I go back to equipment, I stay right on that tag number so I don't have to go find the piece of equipment again. it's interactive and it knows where you've been and where you need to go. Some other things that make this stand out a little bit, as was mentioned in the intro, the screens are customizable. So the nameplate section up here, this is any information you want about this piece of equipment. So as I move through and look at the different pieces of this, if I'm over here looking at the scheduled events or all of the IS information or the user-defined fields, I still have all of this information visible. So no matter where I'm at in the system, I can see this nameplate. This is customizable. It can be customized by user or by the entire security level. So if you want all of your technicians to see the same information, you can set it up once for that role. And then as techs are assigned to the role, they inherit the security and the setup of the fields that they get to see. For admins or lead techs or anyone with more advanced rights, you can give them rights to set their own fields up there if you would like. So no matter where I'm at, I can see that. On top of that, we have unlimited expansion fields. You can grow these as much as you want. You can add new frames in here to group whatever fields you want together, and then you can add as many fields as you want in each one just by simply saying add field and choosing which type of field you would like. When you have any one of these fields, if you right-click on it and say edit, you can both make it required and add it to the header. So actually, battery replacement date and battery model both come from this screen. So they look like very important fields because they are to you. Therefore, we allow you to put them in the header, mark them as required, and then they are fully reportable with list view or export. So user-defined fields get as much importance as any other AIMS field, and you can move them where you want and put them in the header and still report on them. It's really good. Even though our software has been around a long time, it's very robust, has a lot of fields in it. We don't always catch everything. You may have a slightly different workflow, or you want to start a new type of business. Maybe we don't have the fields for it already. This allows you to create your own fields and continue to work and report on them and chart off them and everything else. So you have all that functionality. Scheduled events, there's a couple different ways to schedule work orders. So you can schedule them right on a piece of equipment. This would mainly be preventive maintenance schedules, but we allow you to create any work order type that you would like. So if you do want to create a project or any other type of work order off of this, you can. So whatever your list of work order types is, you can turn them on or off, whether you want them to be choosable in this screen. But once you do that, you can schedule a project work order. Maybe it's an ongoing project, maybe it's a one-time project. So if it's just a one-time project, you come over here, say one time, schedule this work order to generate, and on the date and time you want it to generate, it will show up with all of the other generated work orders. So that's one way, is against an actual piece of equipment. However, there are other departments and other uses for work orders in AIMS. It's not just a biomed tool for only maintaining equipment. It's used for rounds. It is used for other departments like IT and facilities, housekeeping we have using AIMS. And they don't necessarily do equipment-based work. They do a lot of location-based work. So over in work orders, you can schedule non-tagged work orders. Same setup screen, but instead of equipment information, you have location information. Everything else is exactly the same. You can still choose the work order type. You choose the interval or one time. You can even make it seasonal. So those of us who live in places where seasons change more, we're up here in Michigan, when it snows out, we don't tend to mow the grass. So if we did have a grounds schedule out here for mowing or calling in the vendor to manage the grounds, we can schedule it to only run during certain times of the year. Because of the way all the scheduling works, it's very, very difficult if you have to manage schedules at the asset level. So much like our current iteration of AIMS, AIMS.net, our system is actually set up at the data manager level. We want you to come out here to the models or the equipment type, both, and set up your scheduled events here. Once you set up the scheduled event at the model or type level, it will then default onto your equipment. You should not have to manage schedules or create schedules at the asset level at the time you create it. It should default in from the higher level. That's how you ensure the right procedure is chosen, the right frequency is chosen, it's assigned to the right people. You guarantee higher data quality when you set it up at the model or type level. And that's not the only thing you can set up at this level. You can set up your equipment types, priorities, who's going to work on it, which service department, any document attachments. So if you have service manuals, user manuals, any other types of documents, pictures, you can assign those at this level, and they all pull down to the equipment and work order levels. It allows you to maintain a higher quality of data with this software. Data quality is one of the biggest problems in the industry right now. So this is a way to help maintain that quality, because not many people will have access to the data manager section of AIMS. You can limit the number of people who have rights to come out here to create those duplicate vendors, manufacturers, equipment types, procedures that everyone tends to struggle with. So from there, we head back over here to work orders. Work orders has a lot of the same functionality. So you'll have the same information across the top. So we're on an air handler here. So it's under contract, critical system. If we go to any one of these work orders, you're going to see the same information. You'll see the same messages, the same picture. It all works the same. Expansion fields also exist over here, but these are the work order related user-defined fields. So from here, you would be able to create a separate set from the equipment set, because these are now work order related fields. Still unlimited, still able to be grouped any way that you want. Functionality is the same, but it's a separate set of fields. You'll see expansion fields as we go throughout the other components. I'm not going to keep explaining it. They all work the same way. The only difference in the bar up here in work orders is there's one extra button for messaging. This is how you can page your employees. You can email them or text message them. There's a variety of ways you can alert them that they have a work order assigned to them. It can be automatic or it can be manual. If you just change an assignment because somebody's out, change it to somebody else, hit the page button, and it will send off to them and notify them that they have a new work order they need to work on. If you're going to set it up to be automatic, so as soon as it's created, that message is sent out, you can set that out by priority. So if you get 500 routine work orders a day, that might be a bit much to send out to someone's email or phone. But if you only want to send the urgent or stat messages out, work orders out, you can do that as well by priority. Now, we know teams of people tend to work on certain pieces of equipment or certain projects. So you are, of course, allowed to assign multiple people out here. You can come out here and assign as many people as you want. Separately from that, you can assign a vendor. So if the main use case here is probably you have someone who's assigned to watch over that work, but it's actually the vendor that's going to come in and do the work. But you still need somebody to manage the process in the system. They have to call the vendor and set up the time. They have to get the paperwork when it's done, close the work order. So that person might be assigned and also the vendor. And then you can notify both parties that that work order is due. Of course, we have other ways to navigate through the system. We have next, previous, first, and last. There's ways to move that way. I assume those are fairly standard. Of course, you can do just a generic find. Neat thing about our find screens is they're also fully customizable. You'll notice a theme with that. So if you want different fields to show up in your search, because you don't necessarily search by some and you want to add others, you can customize that. You can say, I need to search by the equipment description. So you simply add it over there. It adds it to the screen for you to search on instantly. If you want different fields down here in your results list, you can set that as well. This all saves against the user. The next time you log in, you won't have to set any of this stuff up. It saves in the database. So even if you log in from a different machine, you'll have all of your same setup. Your header fields, your search fields, anything you can customize will save. So you can always search, of course, and get to an equipment or work order record that way. And then we have a feature here called link. So there's a variety of ways to do it. You can come over here and click email link. If you click that, it's going to open up your whatever mail program you use. We use Outlook here. It puts in some generic work order information and allows you to send this off to someone. What happens when they click on this, instead of logging in and going to their home screen, they're going to log in and go directly to that record. So this is a way to essentially ask for help. So kind of like the chat before, I can email this to somebody and get help with it. Now that we're both logged in, I can chat with them. So we do have chat built in. So I can go over here, and I know it was Doug Brown that sent it. I can see that he's also viewing the record that I'm looking at also. So we can open this up and chat. The chat history saves. It's all right there. So this allows me to very quickly and easily get help. Now, because AIMS-3 works on any browser, it also works on any device. So if you're out on the floor with a smartphone or a tablet, you still pull up the full AIMS functionality, including the emailing, the linking, the chatting. So I can literally be standing at the equipment with a tablet or a phone, pull the chat up, get some help very quickly while I'm standing there. So it might be a manager, might just be someone, another tech who's an expert on it. Any reason you might need to get a hold of somebody while you're out on the floor. So this is all available from any device, from any browser. Just quickly to show it, if I were to bring this down and show what it might look like on a tablet, it just kind of shrinks things, moves them around a little bit. Might stack some fields up, so you might have to scroll a little bit more, or with the tablet, of course, you'd click and use your finger to scroll up and down. But all the information is still there. You still have the full application at your fingertips while you're on a tablet or a phone. And then if we go even all the way down to phone size, again, it stacks up a little more, but it's all available. All right, so moving on from work orders, we come over here to contracts. We do have contracts workflow in here. Pretty basic contract information. You have the actual control ID, contract IDs, the provider, your effective termination dates, when it's going to be reviewed, and who it's going to be, or when it is renewed, who it's renewed by, and what date. What's covered, what the contract type is. Obviously, you can have an unlimited number of different rates that they charge you for things out here. Contract totals, and then over here on the coverage log, of course, you can apply different equipment to it. Each equipment gets its own information. As we know, contracts aren't just one set of what's covered for everything. You can have a certain set of equipment that's full coverage. Some might be parts only, labor only. So there's a variety of things in here, and you can edit this list, of course. You can have different date ranges. Some equipment's maybe only covered for part of it. Something may be retired early, so that would come off the contract. What's covered under the contract. So you have full flexibility here at the equipment level on the contract, and we also cover services. So services in AIMS are called job types. They're typically used by either the facility's IT, housekeeping, non-equipment related work orders. So this would kind of be where you have that grounds work and painting and the different things that aren't necessarily related to a piece of equipment is what we put under job type. Those can also be covered under contract. When you choose that service on a work order, it'll ask if it's part of the contract, and if it is, you can apply the contract and put the contract costs and materials on that work order just based on the type of work you're doing. So it's not just equipment contracts, they're also service contracts, and some may be both. Over here at parts. Parts has a lot of the same opportunities as everything else. You have images on screen. You're not going to want to do this for all parts. A lot of you are going to have thousands and thousands of parts, but you'll have a set of critical parts, and those are the ones that you might want to throw some pictures out here of just so that people can make sure they have the right one. So either critical, confusing, or if you have a lot of different types of something, that might be a reason to put a picture out there to see, to make sure they're grabbing the right one off the shelf, basically. You can also add suppliers to it, of course. So with this, you can have any number of suppliers. This even works with someone like PartSource or one of those that they might be the supplier. You can add them in here as well. You can track the supplier part number, reorder levels, reorder quantities. So if you drop below a certain number, it can automatically reorder them. That's all set up under suppliers. And then over here at warehouses, of course, you can have many different warehouses. Each facility usually has their own. Facility for us is like a campus. So each one usually has at least one warehouse. A lot of people, it's one per building. They might have a room that has kind of a stock of parts for that building. So you can add as many of these as you have, as many as you use. Some people even put in ambulances because they have an inventory of parts that needs to be maintained. I've seen people put in actual tech vehicles that are used to travel. So there's a lot of ways you can use warehouses in this software. You can, of course, receive parts. You can transfer parts to a different warehouse. We have a full transaction log out here that'll track any type of transaction. When it's issued to a work order, if it's returned off that work order because it wasn't needed, if you receive new ones, if you need to adjust the quantity because you took an inventory and there's less than you thought you had, that's all tracked in the transaction log. The on-hand quantity actually pulls out of the log, so it looks at the entire history of that part and determines how much you have based on the entries in the log. It's an interesting way of doing it because it almost can't get wrong because every transaction is tracked. Since adjustments, receipts, everything are tracked in that log, it's the best way to track the quantity and make sure that it's accurate. And then, of course, price. Price is tracked throughout the whole thing. You've probably seen it on the other screens. We have many reporting opportunities. You've seen the charts. You've seen a couple of the exports. We're going to go through a few more of them now. I'll actually come back to export here. So one of the options on the sidebar under every single component was list view. List view is one of my favorite components. We have it today in the current software. We've brought it over and enhanced it when we brought it to AIMS 3. So this allows you to essentially do an on-screen export. You have all the same opportunities you normally would. You can turn columns on or off. Which information would you like to see? You can filter any column. Even if it's not visible, you can still filter on it, including those expansion fields. So any user-defined fields, those are all out here as well. And then once you get the results that you want, you can do a variety of things with it. You can pop it out, as I showed on the home screen. You have the same opportunity here to pop the screen out. You can go to any one of those records with that button right there. You can do a single-click export. And then in equipment here, another option is replace. So this is our find replace tool. Everyone has equipment that needs to be updated and maintained. This is a very easy way to do it. So when I have my results here, if I want to replace it, replace any information, I hit replace. Anything that's visible can be updated. So if it's not here, I just need to go back and make sure I view it, and then I can change it. So if we went and took an inventory and I looked at all of these parts and determined that they're actually only fair condition, not good, I can update it, and obviously I can make multiple updates at once, and then I can preview the changes. So I can come over here and say, does this look right? Am I sure that I have the right results and I've updated the correct fields? Once I am, I hit submit, it asks if I'm sure, and then I push out my changes. So now you can see those fairs kind of mixed in there. So it's a very, very quick and easy way to perform updates. It's the same way that you perform updates to PM schedules or work orders. It's the bulk update tool. So it's a very powerful way of using and navigating through AIMS. A lot of people do it when they need to update information. So if I went out here and saw model name was blank and I wanted to start updating it, but I had a wide variety of them, I could actually filter this down and start updating it and just go record by record with it popped out. So I can pop it out here. I can go to the first record where it's missing, fill it in, and then just keep going down the list. It's a very easy way to get that information in without having to go through and do a whole export and import of data. So if it's just a quick single field type of update, this is a very fast way to do it. So you'll see those list views everywhere. They're in every single component, all the same functionality. Then down here under export, you have a lot of the same opportunities. You still check what fields you want to show up in the export. You can still filter any one of those fields, same filters as list view. They'll look very familiar. Once you get used to one, you kind of know both automatically. But then the advantage you have out here in list view is you have some reporting formats. So detailed format is kind of the standard export. If something has 2 labor lines, it's going to show up twice because it has to show the details of both labor lines. That's why it's called detailed view. Disadvantages of a view like that, it's very difficult to count work orders. You can't use the Excel functions to count because that same work order shows up twice. So we fixed that by putting in summary and reporting views. The summary view, as it states, will auto-sum the hours, quantities, and costs for labor and material. So you'll get a single line per work order. There's 3 labor lines in 2 parts, still a single line. It just adds up the hours, the costs for labor and materials, and the part quantities. So you get the summary view of it. If you combine that with the include totals checkbox, which is going to include a grand total line, then it does most of that math for you. So I can filter this down to a particular equipment type or manufacturer model and look up my summary costs for the last month, year, all time. So very quickly and easily, I can come out here and grab a manufacturer model or an equipment type or something and get all of the summary work order information on that. Just a few clicks. On top of that, once I have that set up the way I want, I can save it as a macro. So if this is a report I run constantly, I'm always looking at costs for the last month or a rolling 3 months, let's say, that can all be handled through the macros. So you can put in relative date ranges, and instead of looking only at June 1st through June 30th, I can just say last month, and it'll always be last month. Or I can say the last 60 days, and it'll give me the last 60 days from today. So there's a lot of ways you can report using these macros and relative date ranges. Then it's just a matter of the next time I come in here and load it up. Whatever I had turned on and filtered happens, and then I can go ahead and run the export. Oh, I can also add a header and footer as well. So again, if you want it to look more like a report, you add the header and footer. It's a lot like the Excel way of adding left, center, right, so it auto-aligns the information you type in. And then you simply export it to Excel. It's going to pop up and save, and then when you open that, it'll be whatever data you've chosen to do. So in this case, I'm looking at routine work orders assigned to Mike Spiro. Or corrective maintenance, I'm sorry, work orders assigned to Mike Spiro. So all of these should be assigned to Mike, and it's whatever information I chose to show on here. So in this case, this is summary. So you'll see the hours, labor, total options in here, and there's some with data in them. So it's a quick way to get a report out very easily. Now, of course, we need a way to get work orders in the system. So in our company, that's called EasyNet. So EasyNet is the web request system. It's available both as an internal module. We have plenty of customers who, when their techs are out on the floor, if someone asks them to fix something and they don't have time right then, they will actually use the web request system to enter the work order. It's faster than logging into Ames and doing it that way. So it is an actual component inside of Ames for Ames users to access. However, of course, most people who submit web requests don't work in Ames. So if you give them a slightly different URL on the intranet page and they click on it, they get a different view. They won't get the sidebar. They can't get to the other Ames functions in there because they just don't have access to it. Even if they somehow typed in the URL and got to the actual Ames application, they of course would not have a login. So it's very easy to get them this and have them submit a work order very quickly. As many fields as you want to require, which you can see the required field star next to the problem field here. So I will put in a problem field that you're all very familiar with called broken. And if you can get them to enter a tag number, there's a lot of benefits to that. So if they can enter a tag number in, it pulls in all the tags information, including last known location. It shows them the picture. They can make sure it's the right one. It gives them the same information. However, for them, it's not clickable. They don't necessarily need to see that extra information. They don't need to see the contract details or the warranty details. But this tool, again, is not just used by your clinicians or your technicians. This is also a C-suite tool. We have people who, this is how their C-suite, not to submit work orders, but to look up work orders and equipment. So this is a way for them to look up information as well. So it might be important for them to know. We didn't want to exclude it because we have a wide audience that uses this tool. So then at that point, they submit the work order. As I assume all web request systems work, it's instantly created. It's all the same database. So 5770 here. We come back here and go to work orders. This is the work order that was just created. So there's the broken, there's the equipment that was put on. Because of the way I've set up my system, I have automatic assignments turned on. So this work order, even though it came from someone out on the floor somewhere, is automatically assigned to the people that I want to work on it. I may have assigned these directly to the equipment, to the cost center, to the equipment type, to the building, any combination of those. So if I have an expert on a particular equipment type, then I can set them up as primary and they'll be assigned. I can, of course, override that at the equipment level. So if this is a special piece of equipment and instead of the normal primary, I want someone else or multiple other people, I can do that as well. Now, I mentioned it earlier, I believe, because you can see it up here, the equipment down, but now I actually want to show you how this works. So downtime is a very important metric. It's also one that can be difficult to get. A lot of systems, and even our old system, it was manual entry. You don't know if it's down, you don't know when it was back up, so you have a field, you can enter a number of hours or minutes in to say how long it was down. We're going to try to do one better than that. So what we want is the ability for the equipment to be marked down and back online very quickly and easily. This can't add a lot of time. Again, our goal is to make it so quick and easy to use that techs are spending more time out on the floor doing what they're being paid to do, not entering data into our system. So we've made it very quick and easy. We, however, do not leave the choice up to the clinical staff. Clinical staff tends to learn very quickly that if they mark something as urgent or high priority, or down in this case, that you'll come running a little bit faster. So if you give them the ability to mark it as down, I think you'll find a lot of things down that maybe aren't. So we actually want to leave it up to the tech. So when the tech gets there, decides that yes, the equipment is actually down and it wasn't just unplugged or needed to be restarted or something, they can mark it as down. When the tech marks it as down, it's not the moment they click it. It's actually going to be marked down at the request date of the work order. So essentially the tech is saying, yes, it is down. It's been down since they called it in. So we backdate it to that time, or in this case, forward date it because of the server that I'm using. So it puts that date and time in there, and then when it's marked back online, it is the time that they actually click the checkbox for back online. So when you hit this equipment down here, it actually shows you the work order and allows you to go to it. So this is the work order it's actually marked down on. It was marked down on May 25th. So this thing's been down a long time. But let's say it hasn't been down this long. We just forgot to update it. We forgot to come here and close out the work order. It happens. It happens to everybody. So it wasn't today's date. If it was today's date, it would have been down for 1,000 hours. So instead of being today's date, we are going to take it back and say, nope, this was actually closed on May 25th, let's say, at, I don't know, pick a time, 5:36. So it was basically 2 hours later that it was back online. So that just changed it now to 2 hours instead of 1,000. So we put defaults in there, but of course we allow for overrides because not all, the system's not used at exactly the time the work is done. That's what we would like. It's what most managers would like. But the reality is it doesn't always happen. So we do allow for changing these. They're just defaults. But if you use the system real time, you're using it on a phone or a tablet or even a laptop out in the field, and they're closing things out as they do them, then all they're going to have to do is check a box and check another box, and that's it. And as soon as the last one is no longer marked as down, the message goes away. Now for reporting on that, we give you ways over here to quickly find what's down. So if you come over here and look for equipment down, you can say, show me everything that's currently down, show me anything that was down but is back online now, or just show me all work orders, which is of course the default. So there's a way to just quickly come out here and say, show me everything that was down and is back online, and here's your list of work orders, including the one I just updated to not be down anymore. So we give you a way to report on these. You can find the equipment that's been marked as down and isn't back online yet. Very quickly and easily is the goal. And then again, because this is list view, you can still pop it out and export. So if you want to report, it says show me everything that was down in the last month, very quick report to do, and you can export it. All right, some of the setup features of this. So the system has almost no restrictions. I have this goofy description over here just to kind of prove that you kind of accept any character. And then the last one, if you're unsure, is an upside down question mark. Any character in the world is allowed in here. Chinese traditional characters. We have customers in Vietnam and Thailand. They can actually have their own language out here, both as the labels and in the fields. So it's most of us here in the US don't care, but I just did a demo this morning for a French-speaking hospital in Montreal. So at the end of it, I actually brought up a version of this in French. So the entire system, you can change any label, English or non-English, or the whole system language can all be changed at the same time as well. No restrictions as far as field length. So if you want to type a small book in the description field, we will certainly allow you to do that. No character restrictions, as you can see here. And that goes for pretty much the whole system. You shouldn't be able to max out basically any field in the system. So we have that. That's the language piece. Again, you can change the entire system language, or you can just change labels themselves. But every single label is customizable, including the pop-up messages. We have some pretty wordy pop-up messages. So if I just type in a fake thing here, even that no results found, that can be changed if you want that to say something else. So anything that's in the system can be updated. On top of that, if you want to change the way it looks, we actually even have label alignment out here. So if you want to change your labels to be left aligned instead of right aligned, you can do that. So we really let you customize the system to be whatever you want it to be. I'm going to go back and change that back to right. This is where you customize that field header. So the equipment header and EasyNet work order, this is where you set up all those header information at an individual level. You can also, as I mentioned, do it at the security level. But if you want to override the security level, you can actually set it up here. And this is the list of fields that shows up in the header for the user if you want to override the security level. Assignments. This is a way to quickly and easily assign employees in cost centers to multiple facilities. So a facility, as I mentioned, is a campus. Sometimes you have employees that work in multiple places. You have cost centers that aren't just specific to a single hospital. If you have a whole system of hospitals, there may be a cost center or two that's the same cost center number, the account code, is the same for all of them. You don't have to create it 8 times. If you have 8 facilities, you can create it once and just assign it where it belongs. Location fields. Location, as most things, is fully customizable. Do you want a free text field? Do you want, how deep in the hierarchy do you want to go? So if you want just facility and building and then a free text field, you can do that. If you want floor and room on there, you can do that as well. So whatever you turn on here, that's how deep the hierarchy goes when you go to change the location field. For our ISO customers, you guys are going to want to use the region and organization. That is going to allow you to list all of your customers in there, and then underneath each customer, you will have your location fields that you want. So it's a way for you to set up all the different people who you have as customers in there, so you can very easily see which equipment is assigned to which of your customers. Email setup, this is just what allows the emailing to work in the system. So you put in your SMTP information, nothing exciting there. Then over here in messaging, these are the default fields that show up. So when you email someone a work order, these are the default fields that show up. You can choose any work order fields you want. And you can override these, of course, at the employee level. This is just the global default. So when I have a new employee, these are the fields that are going to show up. But if I want to add another field or two to them, I can do that as well. I can switch these in and out at the employee level. But to go and set it up for all of your employees would be a lot of work, and we don't want you to do a lot of work. So we'll let you set up a global default as well. And then some other settings. So we do have a setting in here for if a piece of equipment is marked down, do you want them to be able to close that work order or not? So if you say no, you have to bring the equipment back up before you can close that work order, don't check this. If you want them to close that work order, then let them close it. They can bring it back online on another work order. There are use cases for both. This is going to be a management decision, which is why we put it out here. Security, much like AIMS today, security is at the field level. So every single field is represented out here. So equipment nameplate, all of its fields, all the location fields, even the expansion fields, they're all out here in security. So if I want someone to be able to edit a piece of equipment but not change the important fields, the manufacturer, model, equipment type, I can actually secure those out. If I just come over here and turn that off, they don't have access to those anymore. So at the field level, you can turn it on and off of what people have access to. If I want someone to be able to add equipment but not delete equipment, I can do that as well. So a lot of opportunities out here. It's very, very detailed. I'm not going to go through it in any more detail than that right now. But every component out here goes all the way down to the field level of what you want them to have access to. And then this is where you can customize those header fields for the security level. No limit to the number of security levels. So standard set would be tech, tech lead, supervisor, maybe a facility manager or regional manager, depending on how big you are. Might have all those security levels in here, but then you might have one for your contracts manager. Their job is just to, handle your contracts, negotiate, update the information in the software, but they don't do work orders or anything like that. So you could create them just contracts security. Same thing with parts and purchasing. Data managers, this is a way to manage all your lists of information. We wanted all lists in one spot. Almost every software I've seen, actually including our old software, you kind of have to go to multiple spots to find all the information. It is all in one spot now. So anything that is a drop-down list shows up all in one spot here. On top of that, it's split screen. So it's easy to see the list, see what you're working on over here. A couple of them have this facility filter. So something like cost centers. If I want to see all cost centers for just one of my facilities, I can filter it here and it'll update my list. So I'm not seeing cost centers for other facilities. This is a global list, but because of assignments, these are only assigned to one hospital. Employees works the same way. So I might have some employees that travel, some that don't. So if I just choose my employee facility filter, I'll see exactly who has access to that facility and who doesn't. Hours of operation. This actually takes into account during the downtime calculation. Most departments in a hospital are, of course, 24 hours a day, but some are not, and most of you guys manage kind of some off-site places also. They certainly aren't 24/7, most of those off-site ones. So if something is called in at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and then they close for the day at 5 o'clock, and you have it fixed before they start the next day, it's only been down for an hour. It doesn't matter if it took you 7 hours to get there and get it fixed. They couldn't have used it during those other 6 hours, so it only counts as down for the 1 hour if you choose to use hours of operation in the calculation. I think it'll be the standard way of doing it, but if you want to override it, you can, of course. few other ones I want to highlight out here. Employee user setup. So when you go to create a user and employee, you only have to do it once. You're only going to come here. This is where you're going to set up the employee, their login and security level information. You can put a picture on there. That's a picture of one of my kids. You can make them a manager. This is where that home screen comes into play. So the manager home screen, I think I may have closed it. No, I didn't. It's still open. So this comes from this setup right here. So when you choose to make this person a manager and assign them employees, they automatically become a manager when they log in at that point. You can set up their rates. So these would be charge rates, not necessarily pay rates. We're not looking to get into that part of the world with this software. So this would be what you charge for their work. If it's an internal thing, this may not matter if it's all done inside the hospital. But again, for that outside work, certainly for our ISOs, this will be critically important to enter the correct rates in here. Assignments, this is another way to assign at the employee level. And then this is the messaging setup, which as you can see here, I've actually overridden the default because it didn't use all the different field options. So you can override the default at the employee here. So anything related to this employee, this is where it's done. Procedures and tasks is the next place I want to hit. So task results are a big thing. When you're out there performing your procedures, taking readings of things, volumes and temperatures, and the various things that you guys take readings for, you need a place to put that information. So much like AIMS.net, we allow you to put that information out here in our software. The advantage you have out here is this can now do calculations as well. So if you think about this from maybe not a PM perspective, because most PMs you won't need it to do a calculation, but if you look at it from something more along the lines of an AEM analysis. So if you have an AEM analysis out here based on your criteria, this one in particular comes from what Frank Painter's been presenting at all the various shows. I asked him for permission. He allowed me to use it in the software in this fashion. So I will give him credit. It's an excellent way to do it. It's a lot of customers and prospects I've been talking to have really started to adapt into that same process. So I've kind of adopted it in here in a fashion. So what this allows you to do is you set up each task of what it is. Is it a numeric? Is it a value of 0 to 5 degrees or ohms or whatever it is you're tracking? So you have access to that list there. And then there's some other options in here. If it fails or is a no to the answer, do you allow the work order to close or not? If it's a failure, if it's marked as failed, do you want to automatically generate a work order to correct it? So those are kind of the couple of the options we have in there, and that comes over from our current software. We've had that for years. What else this does, though, is allows you to have calculated tasks. So you can come out here and actually create a formula based on any of the numeric tasks that you have. So these are my numeric tasks. I can actually come out here and just type a math formula. Parentheses, times, divide, multiply, add, subtract. Any formula you come up with, it will accept out here. You can use hard-coded values as well. You don't have to use a task. If I wanted to just divide these by 2, I could do that simply by putting the number 2 in there. So you can dream up any formula you want, and it'll just fill it out automatically as you're typing in the rest of the results in the work order. Formulas can also be used in other formulas. So especially for something like this AEM analysis, if you needed at the end to just add those together to come up with an answer, you could do that. So you could take the calculated answer with another answer and have it, again, add up, average out, depends on what you're trying to do with it. So from a project or an AEM perspective, the calculations are going to be very, very handy. Even on technically the facility side for doing areas of rooms and things like that, they may actually find use for it as well. We all have calculators. This has one built in. So there's a lot of good use for that there. And then over in work orders, if I just find a work order here, required fields. Have work orders with this information on it. I just don't know that I have one set up. So it's the same screen. You just access it from the work order control here. If I actually go to defib free. One of these work orders has it, I believe. I can find it quickly. So it's accessed from right up here. Any work order that has a procedure doesn't necessarily have to just be a corrective work order. It might be, or just be a preventive work order. It could be a project. Even a corrective may have a procedure assigned to it. So you can assign a procedure to any work order and access it from here. Work order type, we're switching away from hard-coded values more to metadata. So what that means is instead of saying preventive maintenance has to be PM or it has to be the phrase preventive maintenance or scheduled maintenance, it's just a checkbox. So anything that you want can be a PM type. So if you want your incoming inspections to be a PM, check it. If you don't, uncheck it. Industry seems to be pretty 50-50 split on that particular function right there. You get a new piece of equipment. Does it count as a PM or not? About half people say yes, the other half say no. User's choice. If you wanted an unscheduled PM, you could do that as well, where if someone has to manually create a PM, I want them to choose this one instead. So you check that type. Those charts and reports that report off of PM all look at that checkbox. They don't actually look at the codes or descriptions anymore. And then here, of course, you can see which ones are eligible to be used in a scheduled event and which ones aren't. You don't necessarily want your corrective maintenance to be scheduled. It's kind of not the point. So you could update that and turn that off, and those will no longer be able to be scheduled. So there's a wide variety of improvements out here. Over here in vendor, we looked at this for models, but I skipped over the vendor type. So vendor type is what's going to make this show up in the various spots in the software. So this, of course, is the manufacturer field. Is this manufacturer or not? Can they also be an equipment supplier? Can they be a parts supplier, a contract provider, or a nameplate manufacturer? This nameplate manufacturer is what's going to allow you to track separately which name is on the equipment and which name you call, or who you call when you need parts or service for that. So when you walk up to it, it may say one name on it, it may say HP on it, but that's not who you're necessarily going to call. If they got bought out and they now go buy something else, this allows that distinction. Both of these show up on the work order, so they know who's on the nameplate and who to call. So if someone is completely gone, they were 100% acquired, they no longer exist anywhere, but they still are on equipment, you turn everything off, they still show up as a nameplate manufacturer. That's the only list in the software they'll appear in. So it will prevent bad data moving forward. No one will be able to choose them anymore, but they will stay as a nameplate manufacturer. Of course, you can have multiple addresses. Everyone has many different addresses and contacts for vendors and manufacturers. You have a service number, a sales number, a lot of different phone numbers and addresses for getting a hold and mailing things in. So we, of course, allow for all of that as well. I think that's about it for data managers. There's so much else out here. All the defaults over here at equipment type where you can set default priorities, scheduled events out here. You can put attachments that pull down to equipment and work orders. That, again, I assume is all fairly standard compared to other systems, certainly compared to our current software, Ames.net. All of this is over there as well. Location tree has a pretty neat feature in it. I'll show you what it looks like just by dropping one of these down. So to get numbered rooms in there, a lot of places have numbered rooms, either patient rooms or some places even number all of their rooms and throw a barcode above it so they can just scan it and get to that information. So if you have something like that in your hospital, certainly patient rooms that are numbered, we have ways of getting that in here so that you can actually use the hierarchy without it taking you weeks and months to enter that data. So over here under multi-add, if I choose a floor and hit multi-add, it's going to say what children of this do you want to add. So in this case, patient rooms. Now I've already added these, so I'm not going to do it again, but I will just show you what you do. So you come over here and say patient room. I want to start at 100. I want to add 50 of them. And in this case, I actually am using dual occupancy rooms, and I just chose A and B. So I'll do 100, start at 100, just 50 of them A, and then when I would hit add, I would change that to a B and hit add again. and you essentially end up with this list in seconds. You can still add the one-off, so I added a radiology room there. I have a wide array of things that I've actually added. So you can add floors that way. You can add room numbers. You can single add things. If I just come over here and say add, I can add a new office pretty easily. So come over here, add the office, and there it shows up in the list. So you can always one-off add, but to get the majority of your numbered rooms in there, very quick and easy tool with the multi-add. Trying to speed up the management of the software as well as the tech workload. So if we can speed everyone up that uses the software, again, you all have full-time jobs, and most of them are not inside of our software. So we're trying to make it quick and easy for everyone, techs included. Area assignments, this is where you can set up assignments, those automatic assignments I talked about. So if you have an expert, a biomed expert, actually, because you can have multiple experts for different departments. So if Beth here is my expert, she actually has some set up already. So if she is my expert here on suction regulators and sterilization units, let's say, and maybe she only handles those in the main hospital, then I can add that. It'll add them to the list here, and it just throws them in here. As you can see, they're in the list here. She does a lot, and those are the two I just added. And then any work order that comes in and for that type in that building will automatically be assigned to her. It is a way to get things assigned to the right people at the right times. Required fields work the same way as equipment. Every single field in the system can be required or not, user choice. And then at the end of the day, we do allow for some customization as well. Software is used more when it's a little more fun. So without giving them too many options, we allow them to come out here and very quickly and easily choose their highlighting. And for those of you like myself that like dark mode, same options in dark mode. Same highlighting, just with the dark background instead of light. There's a toggle up top here as well. It's just going to switch between light and dark with whatever your main theme is. You don't have to give them access to that. Doesn't really hurt because they can't spend a lot of time with it, and it makes it a little more fun and customizable for them so they can use software that they actually like the look of.
Thank you, Aaron. A quick reminder for our attendees today: to obtain your certificate for 1 CE credit from the ACI, please remember to click the link located below this webinar title to complete today's survey. If you have any questions, you can reach us at webinars@mdpublishing.com.